GG.
That's my friend! And you're found you!
Whoa. Okay. It's another video. How insane is it? Don't click off. I love you. I love you very much. Thank you for clicking on this video. Let's talk about champion latency today. I heard about this idea like a week ago. Let me take another sip of my coffee. That's becoming my intro, I guess. It's so good. Wait, I need another one. I'm not an addict. Well, I am an addict, and I'm proud. A proud coffee addict. Okay. Champion latency. I like the idea of it. It's not like a super important concept, but first of all, let me explain what it even is. Champion latency, basically, it's the time it takes between receiving information from the game to your brain, then thinking what you want to do or what you need to do, and then actually executing it, right? So it is the information that comes in, you process it, and then until you click, that's the latency part. So if you don't know how a champion works, you don't know its abilities. I think maybe people can relate to it in ARAM, maybe that's an example. I mean, or maybe on Summoner's Rift. I don't know if any of you go into Summoner's Rift without knowing the abilities. But if you don't know the abilities, and you go in and you have to read it in game, kinda, and then you have to think about what did it say? What does this ability actually do? Right? Something like that. Maybe that makes sense. Maybe I'm explaining it completely wrong, butchering it. I don't care. The thing is, it takes longer. That's the point, right? I mean, everybody has a ping, but this is not about ping, pretty much. That's what I'm trying to say, right? It's about how long does it take to receive information, process it, and then execute whatever your champion does based on the information that you gathered, right? So if you have Ezreal Q, if the enemy walks forward, that is an information, you receive it, you process it. How long does it take for you to actually fire your Q and hit them, right? How long does that take? That's champion latency. And the best players in the world, like Chovy, One-Tricks, if you watch their gameplay, all of their movement is incredibly fluid and fast. They're anticipating the enemy movement already. And anticipation is one big part for decreasing latency. If you know Ezreal has a Q, you're not gonna just walk in a straight line at him. You may be dodging a little bit, anticipating the dodge. Your latency for the dodge is so low because you're anticipating it already, right? Another part of lowering the latency is intuitive execution, right? If you already have internalized whatever your champion can do, executing this will be very low latency because you're doing it almost automatically, right? Your brain already knows, okay, this happens, I will press this button. This happens, I will click right. This happens, I will flash. You know? Malphite ult is a good example. It's not a reaction type thing. You know what Malphite ult does. So you want to flash whenever you see the animation and not flash it like randomly, you know, type of thing. But you know it's coming, so you can look at it, and when you see either the game state for it, you know, there can be a game state where Malphite usually ults. I think that's how it's mostly done, right? It's not even the animation of the ult. It's like, it's almost the game state. If you're in a team fight, you know Malphite is in a good position to 5-man ult, he will probably just do it. That's just what it is. And then your execution will be very low latency, and you will dodge the ult with your flash because of it. Right. Another thing that increases the latency would be overloading your brain. If you're distracted, if you didn't have enough sleep, if you didn't get something to eat properly, if you didn't get your liter of coffee, you know, if you don't have enough cocaine, all of these things will overload your brain and increase your latency. And it's not going to be possible for you to react properly to in-game situations. And if you're not aware of this situation, imagine the situation, you know? Yesterday you made a great play, you played incredible, great reaction time in that sense. You just felt good about your gameplay. Next day, your sleep is a little bit off, but you don't notice it right away. You queue up, you're playing terrible. And now you're thinking, what happened? You know, it's just one day. It's just 1 day difference. Well, your brain is overloaded. There's a lot of information in League of Legends, and your brain can get overloaded very quickly. There's an insane amount of information. I mean, I'm gonna have a fundamental series someday, talking about all of the basic things. And that was my phone, by the way. Professional YouTuber, by the way. Yeah. There's so much information in League of Legends. It's difficult. It's difficult to... That's why, you know, pro players take it seriously. They will sleep, they will work out, they will eat properly. Because all of these things influence the health of your brain. And all of these things lower the latency between what you receive of information and how you can process it and use it. Any distraction increases latency as well. Music. If you're blasting hardstyle while playing, I don't care if you're a challenger, okay? If you stop that and actually focus, you could be rank 1 maybe. That's the reality of it, okay? The lowest latency is when you're in the zone. But we'll talk about the zone in a different video. Actually, we can kind of touch on it at least, you know. It's the zone. I don't know if it's like an athletic concept. When you're in this state of mind where you don't really have to think to execute in a way. It's pretty weird to describe, but anyone who ever got into the zone, they will kind of understand it. It's like your execution is just it's so free. It's very freeing in a way. Like you're just executing, and you're probably assessing all information at once, and you're just executing perfectly based on your past experience without having to overthink anything. So it's so quickly and so intuitive that the latency is incredibly low, and that makes it so difficult to deal with, and why people say, well, the zone, you need to stay in the zone. But I mean, in League of Legends, it's not... I don't know if it's really possible to always stay in the zone. There's too much stuff happening. And usually you can only stay in the zone if you're not like overly emotional. And League is a very emotional game because it's essentially a war simulation, right? It's like 2 teams. You have all of the information. You're relying on people that aren't your friends or anyone you really know even. And it becomes very emotional, very difficult. That's one big part of League, but yeah, that's the concept of champion latency. Is it like super helpful to know about? Maybe? I don't know. I mean, it's not like CSing, right? It's more like a concept where I thought it's interesting. It's interesting to think about, you know? It's not only that League of Legends characters have 4 abilities, you know? The difficulty for characters in League of Legends, you know, there was... Actually, let me say one more thing here. I thought champions were easy. When I was like starting out, maybe a little bit later, I thought champions were easy, right? You only have 4 abilities. But the difficulty for champions in League comes from the interaction with everything else. The terrain, other characters. And that is why the concept of champion latency is interesting to me. Because all of these things influence this latency, you know? If you don't know all of the other characters and you have to actively think about, oh, what does that character do? What does my character do in interaction with that character? If you actively have to think about it, your reaction time will be very slow. And you're never going to see that in high elo. Never. People will know their champion, enemy champion. Even if they play a new character, they can adapt very quickly to their kit, make it relatively low latency, not flawless, but low latency, you know, learning fast, because in low latency we'll also learn faster. And that comes from having like a clear objective. Basically, you have an idea of what your ability does. If you execute it fast and you fail, you'll also learn faster, right? It just has to be actually like with intent. Go in with intent, try to improve your latency. Let's champion latency as a concept for you, okay? Maybe it won't even help you, but I think it's interesting to think about. What do you think? What do you think? That's it for this review as well. I think it's kind of an interesting thing. Thank you for watching. Salute, enjoy. Maybe get a coffee as well. Let me actually take an outro coffee sip real quick. Slurp. Slurping it up, bro. What am I even saying? Anyways, I'll see you again.